Recording. So session 3, we are going to quickly cover methods which are part of classes. So if you used Python before, you probably know what these are. So I'll go through them pretty quickly and then you'll get more practice with them later. Then we're going to go over Pygame events, which are mostly like input. So like user input, that's largely what Pygame events is. And so then we'll combine these inputs that we learn about with our rectangle from last session so that you can actually control it. Okay. Right. So uh, review of objects, your variables within your objects. Your objects are like boxes and they hold a bunch. It's kind of like a dictionary. An object actually a lot like a dictionary, except the difference is that it's easier to like make multiple objects because you have the class, right? Which in other words is a blueprint that's already there. Whereas if you wanted to like if you had a dictionary that had like a name and let's say you had name equals blah, you had maybe like health and you wanted to create another one of these things, then you would have to copy and paste it. That's very inefficient. So that's why we use objects. And I'm sure there's a few other reasons, but off the top of my head. Other thing that you can do with objects is you can have dictionaries in objects. And they're not dictionaries. You can have functions in classes, right? And so if you have a function within a class is called a method, and you can usually methods are used specifically on the object that is called that calls it. So like for example, if you create a dog object and you say dog.move, then it'll move just this dog object, right? And obviously you could create another function. Sorry, I won't scroll so much. You could always use another function to get the same result where you're like, oh, here's my move function and I pass a dog object into it and then I'll change like the dog's x position by 5. So you could do it both ways, but methods are just easier to use. And so here's a little comparison you can get back to later. And so yeah, just with all the with the initiation function, you also want to have the self keyword here so that you can actually access these object variables. Actually, sorry, instance variables is what I should call them. So these are your attributes, and they're different for each instance of the object that you create, right? Every person has a different birth year. And so here's like a couple examples of methods, and you can actually call methods within methods. So within move right, I guess you would do like, I think we will probably get to that later. But it's just like when you call one function with another function, right? So maybe you have to do a jiggly dance or something, and you'll call move up, move left, move right, move down, right? So they're basically like functions once again. So yeah, like you can pass parameters in them. In which case, if you were to call them, you would say something like, um, what is it? A snake. It would be s equals snake, right? S equals snake. Boop. Well, I don't really care about initiation variables, but sure. Here's an example. Why not? You would say s.move right, and you would enter the distance. Ooh, you would enter the distance. So once again, like the self keyword, it's just ignored because this is Python expects the first keyword that you pass to it to be like the reference to your object. Um, okay, and that brings us to our first quick question. What is the error in this code? So once again, you should be able to find the slides on the School of Ignite website, but I'm going to send you the link in chat anyways. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Hey, Jahan, do you want to share the top hat as well, like a share screen? Yay. All right, most of you got it correct. We forgot to have ours. Okay, I guess I should share my screen. Yes. Well, yes, indeed. Yeah, so since there's no self keyword here, birthday method has like no idea what self is. What's self.age? There's no self keyword. Okay. Um, Actually, something interesting to try. It would be. I haven't actually tried this myself, but since I mentioned the self keyword, it doesn't actually matter whether it's not really a keyword. It's just like what is the first number, not letter, not number. Sorry, what's the first thing that you see? So I believe this would probably be work. This would probably work. I might be wrong though, because I think you might have to use the same like variable name consistently. But you could try this for yourself if you want. See if this works, where you just have like the first argument that it expects is like the object itself, right? That is for you to try. So, kind of explained calling methods already. So same thing as what I did earlier. And you can also have methods return. It's basically like a function. You can have them return stuff, return variables. So this code over here just says, like, it checks the position of the snake, and if it's off the screen, then it'll return true. Otherwise, it returns false. Okay. You know what? This brings us to our mid-session exercise. And honestly, feel free to add like whatever you want to it. If you can think of like something other than homework, do something else. I don't really care. I think you should have fun. So the key things are you want a class of some sort, and you want some way to modify the attributes of each object in the class. So if you were to do something that wasn't homework, like maybe you're doing Pokemon or something, you could be like, oh, I have this Pokemon Pikachu object, and I have a function that says take damage. So then Pikachu loses HP. Whatever. Do whatever you want. Um, it's, yeah. And I guess, okay, the other thing, so you want something that can modify an attribute, and you want something um, that can like view the attribute. So it's like, okay, now how can I see the HP, right? I mean, it's pretty simple, I guess, because you could technically just write like student dot whatever homework, assuming that's a variable. But we want to turn it into a method essentially. So we'll do this for we'll do it for 15 minutes, and then if you haven't finished, you can get back to it later. But it's like you're gonna have lots of practice in when you're building your game and in the express of the exercises. Okay, yeah. Um, so wherever you got, you can continue if you didn't finish it. And of course, like ask your mentors if you have questions. That's what they're there for. So we're gonna move on, and this is how you interact with stuff, right? You'll see there was back in our Pi file. Um, Also, like a side note, for all of the exercises, you can Oh. Actually, okay, it's always here. So for all the exercise files, you should, in the comments section or speaker notes section of the exercises, there's usually an exercise template file. And it's really just the same thing as what we use. I think we use the same one for all of the exercises. And you could just copy and paste your code from like the previous exercise because a lot of the exercises are like, they kind of build on each other. So it doesn't really matter what you choose to do. Okay, but back to that, we're gonna do. I'm just gonna run through this really quickly. I think you'll have like you get the most value when you're actually trying to do it. So in this event section here, these are okay. I believe there's a difference between how they work. Okay. No, I can't quite remember. Anyways, there is actually a difference between this for loop here and the keys pressed. Um, if I remember correctly, this might not be true, so you'll have to experiment. But I'm pretty sure the stuff here is like it doesn't check it as consistently. So this for event in pygame.event.get, it gets you all your event types. So that's mouse movement, keyboard presses, um, what else? Mouse clicks, like those are all like those are would all be in your list. So pygame.event.get literally just returns you like a huge list of events, right? And so this little for loop here just checks through all of them. It's like, oh, if I click the X button on Pygame, like quits. That's what it does. So I'm pretty sure you can move your key presses into there as well. Um, but I think we just like to do it here. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So I don't think there's a huge difference. But so in this case, what we do is keys pressed gives you a list of all the keys that were pressed in because the way the game loop works is it goes like every second it runs like anywhere from like 30 to 60 times depending on how fast your computer is, like this the while loop, the game loop, right? So check like for a key press every, let's say it's 60, not 60 seconds, every 1/60th of a second. So 60 times a second, it'll be checking like, I think that's how it works. Um, yeah, it's similar to like the FPS. I think it's those two are pretty closely related, but it'll be checking for whether a key is pressed or not in that moment. And um, then what else? So you can add like whatever key you want up here. You can look in the documentation, but the basic ones are like K and then capital letters for like, backspace, tab, or not tab, sorry, space, up, left, right. Then you can do like specific keys where it's lowercase. But basically what you're gonna, if you want to add extra keys, just look up like Pygame key documentation on Google, right? And it'll show you like, oh, I'll show this tab as well. So I just looked up Pygame and I clicked Pygame documentation. I looked that up, and now I can say, oh, look, there's like a bunch of keys. I can use any of these keys, right? And so now then you can use any of them. You can look up how modifiers work, etc. Actually, modifiers you kind of have to do it manually, I think. Yeah. So all these just check if a key is being pressed. If you want to be like, oh, Shift P or something, then you have to check for both the Shift key and the P key is being pressed. Okay. That's how events work. And yeah, by the way, there's another way to do it, but like I said, that you can put them in here, but you don't really need to look at that unless you want to. So there's going to be our second quick question, and I'll cover most events right after that really quickly. And then we'll just jump straight into the exercise with lots of time for you to ask questions, figure stuff out. And like if you finish the exercise early, like, I encourage you to talk to your mentors. And actually, okay, there are some bonus stuff, but if you finish all the bonuses as well, ask your mentor for like a challenge, like you're gonna learn a lot. Okay, but with that, let's do a quick question. And Jahan, can you share the screen as well for the questions? Actually, how do you guys prefer? Do you prefer like if I just leave my screen share on and we don't care about like the top hat thing? input in the chat. Let me know. I'm back. Mwahaha. Oh, almost. Almost done. Okay. This one is trickier. So the key thing. Okay, let me screen share first. Yeah. So this thing, this question doesn't really have that much to do with the new things we learned. It's all about your understanding of if and else if statements, right? So the way it works is these two statements are in like the same group. So if this first statement, if the right key is pressed, if this is true, we execute this statement, and then we jump like over, we skip this because this is more like a backup plan, you know. So you think of it as the first statement is like plan A. So if plan A works, we don't need to do plan B, but plan B. So this is like plan B. It only happens if plan A doesn't work, but in this case, if the right arrow key was pressed. So then, but the next thing, this if statement, like it's not connected to the other two parts in any way. So you get arrow pressed because of the statement, and you get number pressed because of the statement. So um, finally, we have mouse events, and uh, the main one that you're going to be using is mouse presses. But like I said, your um, mouse position is also moving the mouse is technically it's considered a mouse event. I know this because I was experimenting once and I was like, what? There's so many mouse events. Like if you have if you do something like for every where it says for event in pygame.event.get, if you just print all of them, you'll see like mouse movement is like one of them. But yeah, so the two things you're probably going to use the most is you're going to check for mouse position, which gives you a tuple where the first coordinate is your x coordinate of the mouse, second coordinate is your, sorry, not coordinate, second value is your y coordinate. And your same thing with the pygame.mouse.get press button. it will return you a tuple with basically left, middle, and right. So 0th index is left. Actually, I believe this is correct. Yeah, you can verify. I thought it was 0 is left and 1 is right, but maybe it's 0 is left, 1 is middle, and 2 is right. Like whichever number you put here. But you keep in mind, basically it's a tuple, so you have to specify like which one button you're looking at. And that is what the exercise is for you to experiment and mess around and all that stuff. So have fun. We're going to do this until basically the end of session. And okay, I'll go back down a little. Okay, I guess I'll invite you guys back a little before we finish so I can go through extra little thing, but good luck. And breakout rooms.
If you were in Aditya or in my room, you can join Eric's or Fadil's room, please. You guys can join Fadil's because no one is there right now.